Hi everyone, welcome back to Dimitra's Dishes. So today I'm going to be teaching you how to make another version of my Gigantes recipe. Gigantes are giant beans. Today I'm using giant lima beans, but use whatever you can find. This recipe is delicious. It's perfect for the holiday table. It's inexpensive. It's super flavorful, very nutritious and delicious. Let's go over the ingredients so we can get started. So in my pot right here, I have an onion, a large onion that I finely diced with 5 or 6 cloves of garlic. Use however much garlic you like. I just peeled them and just put them in here whole just because they're going to cook and soften and then they'll just be mashed up, so there's no need to chop them up. I have a pound of giant lima beans here that I had soaking in cold water overnight. Then I have about a pound or so, but the measurements will be on the website. Then I have some crushed tomatoes. Use any canned tomatoes you can find and just puree them. Salt, pepper, oregano, some roasted yellow peppers, but you use red peppers because yellow peppers are pretty hard to find. A little bit of sugar, you can use honey instead. Some crushed red pepper flakes, olive oil, spinach, and a little bit of feta. So this recipe is so versatile. You can add so many more things to it. You could do olives, chopped up olives, sauteed mushrooms, some carrots, celery, whatever you want. But today I'm going to be making mine with spinach and roasted red peppers. So I found this jar of roasted yellow peppers at the Greek festival that I went to a couple weeks back, and I'm using these, but red peppers are fairly easy to find and their smoky, tender, sweet flavor is just perfect for this dish. Now, let me talk a little bit about the beans before we get started and I forget. So the beans, these are raw uncooked beans, and when you're working with raw uncooked beans, you have to soak them overnight so that way they cook evenly, right? But I have made these on the fly in a rush, and I'll tell you a trick that I used. If you take them out and you want to make this recipe today, what you're going to do is you're going to place them in the pot with cold water, bring it up to a boil, reduce it to a simmer, and let it cook for about an hour. Then you strain out that water. That would be as if you had them soaking overnight, and then you just follow the recipe as it's directed. Now that means that you would still have to cook them another 35-40 minutes, okay? So that's the trick for quick cooking them. It still takes a while, but it skips the overnight soaking process, if that makes any sense. If that doesn't make sense, then just ask your questions in the comment section down below and I'll try to answer all of them. Before we get started, I'm going to start cooking the onions and the garlic in some olive oil, and that's going to create a beautiful sauce. So I'm just going to pour about 1/4 to 1/2 cup. This is a big serving of food that we're making, a big casserole. I'm going to start this off on a high heat, and once it gets going, I'm going to reduce the heat to a medium low and let it cook nice and slow until the onions and the garlic are super nice and soft. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to drain this water out from my beans, and I'm going to put it in the back stove on the burner, covered in cold water, and I'm going to let it boil for about 35 or 40 minutes or until they're tender. So once the onions are soft and the garlic softens up too, you can just go in there and smash it up with a wooden spoon, just like that. You can cook them a little bit longer for them to become golden. It's up to you, but they are going to cook for quite a while in the oven. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the pureed canned tomatoes, and all of the other herbs and spices. So we're going to let the sauce thicken a bit, so it's going to cook for another 15 minutes. So the sauce is ready, it's nice and thick. Now it takes the same amount of time to boil the beans as it does to make the sauce, so it's nice to do simultaneously. Make sure your oven is preheated as well, preheated to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. Now what we're going to do is we're going to chop up these roasted yellow peppers into just big chunks, not too small. And if you had more, you can put like 4 or 5 in here, but this is all I have. I'm out of mine because I use them a lot. Now I have a big baking pan here. It's round. You could use a 9 by 13 inch casserole pan. That's fine. You could even bake it in the same pan that you boiled the beans. If you were baking in the oven safe pot, you can go ahead and transfer that to the oven. But I like to bake this casserole in a wide pan because then it has a lot of open surface area, and the top caramelizes at the end, and it just becomes really nice and more intense in flavor. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the sauce to the beans. I'm going to add the roasted red peppers. You can also at this point add some chopped up olives if you wanted to. We're going to mix this all up really well. And then I'm going to give it a taste to see if it needs a little bit more salt. Because the beans, while they were boiling, they didn't get salted at all. Just the sauce has about 1.5 to 2 teaspoons of salt. So they do need much more salt than this. I think about another teaspoon or so, but you check it and season it to your preference, to your liking. Beans are just like potatoes, and they do need salt, so that way they can taste really delicious. Now let's taste it one more time. That's just the right amount. Now I'm going to take this whole pound of spinach, and I'm going to put it in a little bit at a time, mixing it in, allowing it to wilt a little bit from the heat until I have this whole pound of spinach incorporated in the baking pan with the beans. This is good. Just make sure while you're mixing, waiting for the spinach to wilt, that you're not going in and smashing up the beans. Just do it very gently. It takes a few minutes to do this, maybe about 5 minutes, but it's going to be totally worth it. We're just going to pop this in our oven in the center rack. The Gigantes casserole baked at 375 degrees for 50 minutes in the oven. And then I took it out, sprinkled the feta cheese over it, put it back in the oven, and let it bake for 10 more minutes. And for the last 5 minutes or so, I turned on the broiler element while still leaving the pan in the middle rack so it doesn't burn, just so it can get really nice and crispy and golden on top. And if you look down here, you'll see that it has some crispy bits that almost caramelize. Now this is a hearty, delicious dish that you can serve in a few different ways. You can just put the casserole out at the center of the table, and this can be eaten and enjoyed as a meal because it's really hearty, it has a lot of fiber in it, and it's just delicious. So you can also set it out as an appetizer by slicing some really hearty bread and then topping it with the bean casserole. It's so delicious. Your guests can just pick up one and enjoy it. You could top it with some olives or just serve the olives on the side. Really hearty. I said it so many times, super flavorful, very inexpensive to put together, and delicious. Get the recipe at dimitrasdishes.com, and it's also underneath in the description box right down below. Comment in the comment section and let me know what you think. Let me know if you added any mushrooms or carrots or something else to it. Just let me know how you made it your own. I'd love to hear your recreations or your tweaks on these recipes. Thank you guys so much for spending time with me today. I'll see you all next time. Bye, everyone.